help me out. Ushers get a big stick. Ushers get a cattle prod. Yep. Hey guys, help me out. Grab a seat, guys, if you could, please. Please, please, ushers, use the cattle prods if you have to. Yeah. Yeah, Justin's going to come by with a cattle prod.
Montana style.
It is, yeah. Man. Hey guys, have a seat, please. Thank you so much. Have the person sit in your lap or sit next to you. Keep holding their hand, rub their head, scratch their ear, whatever works best. Man. Hey, can I have Jen's mic as well, please, Josh? Thanks. Hey guys, we're not going to transition. I'm the new guy. Hey, we're not going to transition to the message yet. I want you to sit with your eyes open a second. I want you to respond to what this young lady prophetically spoke to our heart this morning. And I know this is probably not good for white people in church, but get over yourself. I'm sorry, but white people, when you get to heaven, you'll be in a real quiet section. Like, none of you moved to that song. Like, it wasn't even like, you're like drinking coffee, like, yeah, chill, that's cool. But anyway, before we go any further, I want you to keep your eyes open a second, and I want you to do something. I want you to respond to the propheticness of what Lord just said to us in Jen. What do you need to surrender to this morning? You need to surrender to something. Stand to your feet. You heard what God said to us through her. Stand to your feet. Stand to your feet. Forget about the person next. I don't care about the person sitting next to you. You need to surrender to something. Stand to your feet. Look around. We're all in the same game. There's no expert people anywhere. There's no superstars. Bar one, his name's Jesus, right? And church is going to go long this morning, so get over yourself, because I'm back. I love our collaboration team and our lead team, but I love you guys, but I'll have some grace this morning. Anyway, but this morning, I want you to do me a favor. I know you're looking at me, but I want you to look at me. I want you to do a crazy thing. I want you to turn around just where you're standing and look at the person right behind you or the side of you and just look at them in the eyes for a second. Shh, don't talk. I didn't say talk. Okay. Husbands, that was not what I was talking about. But do me a favor, if you could take a step of faith. Just do this morning with the person standing next to you, side you. If they're brand new, don't freak them out. But just say, hey, do you mind if I just lay my hand on your shoulder and just touch one another? I dare you. Can I just put my arm on you? Because Jen's going to pray over us right now. Shh, guys, don't talk. Come on, guys, don't get distracted. Stay with me. Come on. Don't get all awkward and white. Come on. Don't get all awkward and white on me. Come on. Shh. Touch does not mean speak, okay? I'm the teacher this morning. Jen, would you pray over us? Because that was prophetic in what you had to say. And if someone this morning can catch hold of what you said today after church, without anything else, they'll be free.
Amen.
To step into a new season.
Yes.
Would you, honey, please?
Yes. Lord, thank you so much for being a God we can trust. Thank you so much for being a God that never leaves us.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being a God that draws us closer to you, no matter how far apart we feel, no matter what we've faced, no matter the shame that's upon us that we're feeling, God, no matter what sin that we are raveled so tightly in, you never have a knot or a bondage that you can't undo. And God, when we feel those moments of surrendering things that we cannot control, things that we cannot undo ourselves, those moments where we give them away to you, I never want a feeling not like that. And God, in this room, in this moment, I pray for freedom over your people. I pray for just unlocking their full potential and who you created them to be, God, that the bondage of sin is not upon them anymore. God, because you died to save our sins. You died to set us free. You are amazing. We worship you. You are holy. You are better than us alone. And God, may we turn to each other as a community and love each other through these things. Send us, God, to each other as helpers. Use us, God, to be your light to those around us, Lord. And thank you so much for never leaving us. I pray that anything anyone is dealing with this morning is gone. That, Lord, you've already crushed it under your feet. But sometimes we like to ravel ourselves back in because there's comfort there, God. Show us the comfort only you can provide, Lord. Show us the way out. Show us what to do, God, and open our eyes and our ears to listen to you and you alone. In your sweet and holy name, amen.
Man, give someone a hug, guys, would you? Grab a seat. Thank you, Jen.
I love you.
Man. Morning, everybody. Morning. I've got about 3.5 hours to cover 12 months of material on this subject this morning. So up front, I'm going to ask you to forgive me because I'm going to offend a whole bunch of people this morning. Because I don't know what you're going through. I don't. I mean, some of you I do, but I don't know what you're dealing with this morning. I just know this, that whole song that obviously most of you didn't even hear, but I mean, what's the whole happy thing got to do with this message this morning? I don't know, nothing. I just thought it was fun, or everything, actually. Because today's subject, and you hear a little bit of stories in a minute about the whole journey, is it's really about us choosing to walk in His happiness. Some people use the word joy. Thanks for being here this morning. Thanks for giving me the privilege to share with you. Thanks for joining us, continue with us in our Roots series. All of us have them, and they go somewhere. And most of us don't know where people's roots go until you push a button. He was 13 years old, and he was a brat. And a husband and wife decided that they would take all that Jesus had poured in their life, Dave, and they would pour it into him. And for the first year, Dave, there's really no response. In fact, the brat got worse. His life got worse. He got more trouble, etc., etc. But this couple decided that they so believed that Jesus could change people, Dave, that they would literally pour the life into this kid and believe that God could bring about change in his life. And so they went about taking in some of the roots that we talk about today, that they loved this brat unconditionally. He didn't deserve it. They walked in a spirit of acceptance towards him when really what he was doing was not something you would approve of. And most powerfully of all, when he screwed up really, really badly, they walked in a deep, 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 genuine spirit of forgiveness. And that brat is me. Why do we do some of the things we do in our church? Why do some of the behaviors and habits and patterns that we have here, where do they find their roots? They find their roots in this 13-year-old brat's life, who was a scumbag and didn't deserve anybody to love him or like him, because all he did was spew anger and hatred and disrespect at anybody that was close by to him, because that's what boys do. Right? You have to show how tough you are and how buff you are and how full of it you are and all that sort of garbage. There's ladies in church, I won't say that other word. But John and Doreen McMillan, my mentors of 40 plus years, saw something I didn't. And they truly taught me what unconditional love was like before I ever knew there was a church. It's about 2 years later that I kind of transitioned a little bit earlier into the military, and then kind of my journey as a believer kind of took place. But for the first season of my life, John and Doreen, my mentors, if you're watching this morning, I love you so much. All they introduced me to was Jesus' unconditional love and a spirit of acceptance, that they accepted me. It didn't mean they approved of what I was doing. And I was still bad. And I was like really bad, not pretend bad. And so when I really screwed up, they truly walked out the whole heartbeat of what does it mean to truly walk in forgiveness towards somebody. Doesn't mean you condone what they do, but you truly walk in a spirit of forgiveness, believing God can show up in it. And so as we walk this out today, I encourage you to come with me on a journey. It wasn't them preaching at me that changed me, but more so it was the application of their faith in a very tangible way. They simply took love, acceptance, and forgiveness, which is the first three things we're talking about in our Roots series, which is a foundation of why I do church the way I do. And they led me to a place where FBO, which is follow, believe, and obey, became possible. So you can't make someone follow. You can't make someone believe. You can't make someone obey. And we as a church believe that people can belong before they ever have to believe. that anybody's welcome in this place, regardless of what your background is, regardless of where you've come from, regardless of what's going on, because we're going to practice loving people unconditionally. We're going to practice walking that out. Because here's the thing, honestly, when it's all said and done, it all starts and ends there. You have the best programs, the best facilities, best teaching, best music, best children's work area in the world, children's church, men's, women's, yada, 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 all that stuff. But without a genuine atmosphere of love, acceptance, and forgiveness, it really doesn't count for anything. And without love, acceptance, and forgiveness really flowing deeply through who we are, it's just another religious gathering. It really is. It's just, and I mean this respect because my wife's not white, but if you should, I won't do it because there's guests here. I'm really white. So it's just another white gathering of people playing church and checking the white box on Sunday morning. And I know Dave, but when a stranger walks by me, I don't have time for them. Or when someone walks by who doesn't look like me, I just kind of find my group that does work for me. Without love, acceptance, really flowing in our heart and who we are as people, broken people, searching people can't come and feel acceptance in a place before they have to change. I want to read an excerpt from the book that has, outside the Bible, most profoundly impacted my life. People ask all the time, why do we do church this way? If you've never read Love, Acceptance, and Forgiveness by Jerry Cook, I would encourage you to do it, but be careful, wear a seatbelt, because it will turn your religious, it will challenge you to go beyond the hour and a half on Sunday morning. Because this isn't church, it's just a piece of church. Church happens tomorrow morning when we walk it out. But here's what it says in the book. People need to be saved and brought to wholeness in every area of their lives. It's a process, not a destination. But before they can be a coming to wholeness, certain guarantees must be made to them and us. Otherwise, they will not risk opening themselves up to us enough to receive healing. The minimum guarantee we must make is that we will love them always, under every circumstance, with no exceptions. The second guarantee is that we will accept them totally without reservations. The third guarantee we must give people is that no matter how miserably they fail or how blatantly they sin, our unreserved forgiveness is theirs for the asking, with no bitter taste left in anybody's mouth. If people are not guaranteed these three things, they will never allow us the marvelous privilege of bringing wholeness to them through the fellowship of the church. That doesn't happen. All the programs in the world will mean diddly squat. That's an Irish word where that's no good. Okay, in case you don't speak Irish. We must always keep in mind when dealing with these three ideas, because this is where funky religious people jump off cliffs. Love is not a license. It's just unconditional. It's not a license. Truth in love, not love absent of truth. Number two, acceptance is not agreement. And today's is forgiveness is not compromise. When you walk in a spirit of forgiveness, you're not compromising anything. Actually, you're going a whole different direction. So please let me share my heart again before we start today. I in no way want to in any way disregard, belittle, or devalue how any of you have been hurt by somebody. I know I have been. But let me ask you a question this way. So how big a deal is forgiveness in reference to our overall health anyway? And while you're thinking about that, take a look at this. Thank you, guys.
Did you know that unforgiveness can actually make you sick? It's classified as a disease in medical books. Now, forgiveness therapy is being used to help treat diseases like cancer. Dr. Stephen Standiford, a cancer surgeon, says unforgiveness makes people sick and keeps them sick.
It's important to treat emotional wounds or disorders because they really can hinder someone's reactions to the treatments, even someone's willingness to pursue treatment.
Of all cancer patients, 61% have forgiveness issues, and of those, more than half are severe. That's according to research by Dr. Michael Berry, a pastor and the author of the book, The Forgiveness Project.
These negative emotions, this anger and hatred, creates a state of chronic anxiety. Chronic anxiety very predictably produces adrenaline and cortisol, which deplete the production of natural killer cells, which is your body's foot soldier in the fight against cancer. When a person forgives from the heart, which of course is the gold standard that we use in Matthew 18, forgiveness from the heart We find that they're able to find a sense of peacefulness. Quite often our patients refer to that as a feeling of lightness. Lori, we don't realize what a burden anger and hatred is until we let it go.
And the first step in forgiveness therapy is recognizing forgiveness is not the same thing as condoning what a person did, which is the major hurdle for most patients.
Amen, let's go home. I mean, that's, if I, and Dave's a friend of mine, so I can use him. If I forgive Dave, then I'm condoning what Dave did. Actually, not at all. If I forgive Dave, that's what God calls me to do. See, unforgiveness is like being suffocated. It just robs us of the oxygen that we all need to live. That's what unforgiveness does for a person. It robs you of the oxygen that you and I need to live. Unforgiveness is diagnosed as a disease. That's what he said, right? So diseases kill people. Unforgiveness kills people. Robs people of the joy of serving Jesus. Robs people of responding to even what Jen said this morning. I mean, that's incredibly prophetic. Jesus spoke to us through an uncomfortable pregnant lady. Because that's what she said. It's like she's in this uncomfortable state, right? She's like, I can't even get picked up at home. I can't pick stuff. Pauline comes and it's amazing. And she's uncomfortable. But guess Jen is smart enough that Jesus said, Jen, I'd like you to speak for me on Sunday morning. And instead of allowing stuff to stop her, she said, Daddy, I'm available, twins and all. And unforgiveness stops us from even doing that. That God would have spoke to someone this morning, but because of unforgiveness and the dirt that gets in our ears from it, we couldn't even respond maybe to what Jen said this morning. That's the power and the danger of it, that refusing to forgive people, he said, makes people sick and keeps them sick. That's crazy, but it's true. See, the first step is someone experiencing the freedom and the life that comes from walking in forgiveness is in recognizing that forgiveness is in no way a condoning of what a person has done, not at all. In fact, it's actually the person who has been wronged, when they walk in forgiveness towards somebody, it's literally that person cutting off the perpetrator's ability to continue to hurt them in their life in a deep, deep way. Doesn't remove the perpetrator's responsibilities, doesn't remove any of that, but it actually cuts them off from me. And so often people ask, well, what is forgiveness? Not, thank you for asking, I'll tell you. Forgiveness is not a feeling. If it were, none of us would forgive anybody because I don't feel like it and we wouldn't do it. Forgiveness is not a weakness. A lot of strength is required to acknowledge pain, declare it, and forgive it. Forgiveness does not mean pretending it didn't happen or hiding from it. Forgiveness does not mean, and please, for all the theologians in the house, rageiler@me.com or 801-695-7700 is my telephone number. For all the theologians in the house, I think sometimes people mispresent this. Forgiveness does not mean kind of forgetting. The phrase forgive and forget is a joke. Absolute joke. I can attest to that. I was a little boy and I lived with a father who was an alcoholic for most of my life. I don't know anything else. Monday through Friday, he would be kind of tipsy all week. And then Friday, all hell broke loose and he got really drunk. And Friday through Sunday, my home was a war zone. I would stand in between my mom and dad and try and stop him from just exploding and kicking holes in the wall and ripping doors off. And I knocked out 2 or 3 times, so I got in the middle of all of it over my life. And then fast forward, my dad and mom get radically saved, radically born again. I remember the day that he called me and said, son, I need to talk to you. Like, what's up, Dad? About 2 weeks after he got saved, he said, can you ever forgive me for all that I've done? Can you ever forgive me for all that happened in our home? Can you ever forgive me for all that you had to live through? No young boy should ever have to be the kind of buffer between his parents. I'm like, Dad, I love you. Daddy, I gladly forgive you because Jesus forgave me. But I've never forgot what happened. It just doesn't hurt anymore. I can tell you exactly when things took place. but I don't live there anymore. It doesn't bleed me out anymore. It doesn't rob me of my emotions anymore. So it's not about forgiving and forgetting. That's called a robot. It's about forgiving and letting go and moving on and remember what Jesus has done for us. Forgiveness does not mean condoning or excusing a wrong. And it doesn't minimize or justify the wrong. That's what people filter. Forgiveness is not the same as reconciliation. There's a profound moment you're going to experience here in the service in a little bit. You have a young lady who is a freaking rock star. She shared at Young Adults last Sunday and it left me breathless. She's going to come to talk to you about that. What does it look like to kind of walk truly into forgiveness and then get to a place where it's not justifying anything, but it's actually coming up with some boundaries and you're reconciling to a point. And then you're allowed to say yeah, and then you're allowed to go, hey, what's the boundaries? So often that's where it gets lost. See, reconciling may follow forgiveness, but we can forgive an offender without establishing relationship again. That's where it gets all funky in the church. Well, you have to forgive, you got to forgive, you got to have a relationship. Heck no. If I don't trust you, I don't trust you. That's your job. It's a trading of commodity back and forth. You have to earn the right to be trusted. I forgive and unconditionally love, but we have to earn the right to have trust in our relationship. Forgiveness is not based on wrongdoers' kind of actions. If the other person never apologizes and asks forgiveness, we should forgive anyway. Forgiveness is not conditional. It's not if you do this, I'll do that. It's I'm going to forgive anyway. I forgave my dad before he ever asked, because if I didn't, it was going to kill me. Forgiveness is not justice. Justice usually involves an acknowledgement of wrongdoing, an apology, and some form of reward or punishment. Forgiveness should occur whether justice is withheld or not. That'll hurt. I don't want to forgive, Rob. Well, then don't. Don't. Just go check with Dad. Because he was really clear, and we'll get there in a second. See, forgiveness does not mean trust. Forgiveness should be freely given, and trust should be earned. You've probably heard this statement before. I think most people have. Unforgiveness is like you or me drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Like I want David to die, and I hate him. And Dave sleeps really good at night. But that's what we think. If I hate the person, they won't sleep. And the enemy's going, because he has you. Because it's not affecting the person at all. But it's destroying you and I. It's killing us on the inside. If I forgive, then I'm weak. You know what's crazy? That's the exact opposite. Dave Willis says this: holding a grudge, unforgiveness, doesn't make you strong. It just makes you bitter and sick. Forgiving doesn't make you weak. It actually sets you free. In fact, Jesus takes it further than we feel he probably should, because he doesn't know our circumstances. If he did, he wouldn't have wrote this. In Matthew 6, forgive us the wrongs we have done as we ourselves release forgiveness to those who have wronged us. And when you pray, make sure you forgive the faults of others so that your Father in heaven will also forgive you. But if you withhold forgiveness from others, I'm sorry, can you please fix that, Nate? That has to be wrong. Your Father will withhold forgiveness from you? That doesn't seem right, but it is. We go, God, I want you to come and fix me. You do everything good for me. And the Irish God, because he was Irish, and we snuck him over in a boat and stuck him in the manger. Well, because all you guys paint him as white. Like, Jesus is always white with long blonde hair. That's actually not Jesus. He actually was like short, probably with curly black hair and olive skin. Actually is what he should have been like, but most of the time he's white and Irish. Anyway, Jesus, I get that, Rob, but if you want the full circle, you have to treat people the way you want to be treated, and you want me to treat you by forgiving you, so I'd like you to pay it forward. I'd like you to walk in forgiveness, not approval, not condoning, not running on the carpet. I'd like you to walk in forgiveness. But what Jesus didn't say, I'll forgive you of your sins, but you don't have to forget ours of theirs. Can I offer you a crazy thought that maybe who we choose to plant our roots in will maybe help determine whether or not we can actually truly extend forgiveness to someone when it's needed so we can move forward? See, the whole thing for the series has been this, that the deeper our roots, I would say, that we choose to put in Jesus go, the more you and I get to grow. I mean, honestly, the deeper our roots that we choose to put in Jesus grow is actually the deeper you and I get to grow. The whole theme scripture for the series this week, you can read the whole thing at home, but it's really a cool story. It's found in Matthew 18, and Peter comes to Jesus because he's always the verbal person. And he says, and Peter comes and asks him, hey, sir, how often should I forgive a brother who has sinned against me? 7 times? Like he's trying to be obnoxious and smart. Like a couple's good, 3 or 4 is not bad, 5 or 6, woo, but 7, like surely that's good enough, right? Then Jesus in his Irish tone goes, nope, that was close, son, but not even scratching the surface. 70 times 7. Now, it's not in here, but I think Peter fell over and fainted. I think that was the first, what do they call that thing, Jackie, when you do that whole, what's that? The CPR. I think that was the first non-captured form of CPR, because Jesus probably going like, seriously, Peter? Like, get up. I'm going to have to go get Jen Dunning, because she's a nurse, because like, I'm like, seriously? Peter's like, oh, really? Like, you didn't just say that, really? Well, the whole story unfolds where Jesus shares a story about a king who is owed a bunch of money by David. So come here, Dave. Dave owes me. Come here, David. Like, I'm the king, yo, baby. Dave owes me like $10 million.
I got it right.
Well, I'll take a check.
Credit card.
But Dave owes more money than he can ever actually pay it. And Dave's like, hey, dude, Rob, I'm sorry, I can't do this. And I loved it because he's the coolest cat in the world. One of the funnest truck drivers in the world. If you ever get a chance, get on the phone with him. He's out there. He says some of the coolest stuff in the world. But anyway, I love Dave so much. I go, Dave, you're good to go. Hell, I forgive you. Get out of here. And off Dave goes. And he's like, oh, thank goodness. He goes back to his seat. And Jason owes him a $5 Starbucks card. Right? And Dave so quickly forgets what was forgiven here and takes Jason and throws him in jail for a $5 Starbucks card. You shouldn't drink Starbucks anyway. Did I just really say that? Cafe Mercantile. Anyway, sorry, our focus. And you kind of like, well, that's just crazy. And yet Dave, so quickly, the story's about Dave forgetting how much he'd been forgiven. And he takes a small thing and beats the tar out of the guy and puts Jason in jail. And then the whole story flips back and I come back and go, David, like, time out, son. Like, seriously? Did we not, like, do you not understand how much? Like, I'm sorry, Dave, but your fruit is going to jail. And all of a sudden there's a recurring and Dave finds in place and he shouldn't want to be. That's the whole story, is really about this massive forgiveness that takes place in David's life. And then he's owed such a small thing compared to what the king or what God does. And then Dave forgets. And we so quickly forget that God has forgiven us so much. And we hold people to such a high standard. Ephesians 4 says this, has God graciously forgiven you? Then graciously forgive one another in the depths of Christ's love. Or Andy Stanley says this, in the shadow of my hurt, forgiveness feels like a decision to reward my enemy. But in the shadow of the cross, forgiveness is merely a gift from one undeserving soul to another. In the shadow of the cross, forgiveness takes on a whole different perspective. When I don't remember what Dad did for me and how much I've been forgiven, it feels like they're getting away with it. But when I reference it to that thing, and I stand before that, and I remember what it represents and who it represents, that brings everything into focus. See, if you remember anything today, please remember this. Forgiveness sets you free, not them. Forgiveness cuts you off from it. Forgiveness allows you to be what God has called you to be. Forgiveness allows you to step into a new day. Forgiveness allows you to cut off the change and find a fresh start, not them. if love, acceptance, and forgiveness are not a foundational part of who we are, it's really hard to enter into follow, believe, and obey. It's really hard to walk off the journey of Jesus. I want to follow you. I want to get to a place where I choose to believe in you. I want to get to a place where I choose to obey you. The fuel that does that is love, acceptance, and forgiveness. See, unforgiveness keeps us imprisoned and chained to the past, but forgiveness sets us free to embrace a new future, to enter into a new chapter, into a new day. We don't deserve it. We didn't earn it. Jesus gave it to us, a gift of forgiveness, because he simply knew that we so needed it. And why is forgiveness so important? Because forgiveness actually sets the prisoner free. And then you have a rush of blood to your head and you realize you were the prisoner. Literally, that's what takes place when we walk in forgiveness. All of a sudden, we realize it sets prisoners free, and we discover that we're the prisoner. Is it easy? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But necessary? Absolutely essential for our health. If you don't get to a place, we don't get to a place where I truly walk in forgiveness. And please hear me. There's loads of scriptures in the Bible. There's one that freaks me out all the time that I'm probably a terrible pastor. But I'm always concerned when we come to a worship service, and I know Dave's mad at Jason. They're not, but I know he is. And Christians come to worship, oh God, yes, yes, yes. Oh, I love you and you're fantastic. And the drummer's amazing. And Jason, the worship team, oh, it was a fantastic burn. And then God goes, yeah? But do you read my book? Put your gift down and go make it right. I'm not interested in your worship. I'm not moved by your worship when I see you're at odds against your brother or sister, so I don't hear you. A theologian says, that's not fair, that's not right. No, that's what it says. Jesus says, stop. Don't come to the altar and worship me if you've ought against somebody, if you're unforgiveness in your heart towards somebody. You want to impress me and get my attention and take my breath away? Jesus, the Irish one, says, I dare you to go put it right, rather than going to the parking lot and having a conversation with the wrong person or with somebody else. No, Jesus says, no, if you really want to walk in the freedom that forgiveness brings, go make relationships right. Because I'm not interested in your worship. I want obedience more than I want sacrifice. I want you to obey my commands. Go make things right. Well, yeah, justify it. I'll just cover it with worship. No, it still stinks. Like, I can't go work outside, which I don't really do because Andrea likes gardening and I think that's, anyway, not good stuff. I can kill plastic plants, so I should never touch real ones. But when sometimes there's been a rush of blood or some extra oxygen and I went to help her in the garden, because I have like once or twice in 25 years. Anyway, she loves it. I hate it. Anyway, focus, Robert. Yes, Lord. But when I come back in with those 2 times in 25 years, and I'm all sweaty and all that sort of stuff and gross, Andrea doesn't say just go spray aftershave on. She's like, dude, like seriously, like go right now. Like really? Can I just no? Like go now. Go get washed. I'm like, honey, I love you. I go in the garden with you. And she's like, no, don't even go. I think Jesus does that. This is the theologians are like freaking out right now. Like, how dare he do that? But I honestly, sometimes when we come to worship and we've ought against someone in our heart, I think that's going, I totally get it. But no, if you really want to have freedom, he's not really up there, but he's really down. But anyway, if you really want to have freedom, go make it right. Go walk in forgiveness towards your brother or sister instead of keep poisoning yourself. I think that's what he wants to do. I think one of the greatest indicators of maybe someone who is growing as a follower of Jesus is the growing ability that we create to forgive someone who's hurt us. I think that's a real indicator of being a Jesus follower, is that when people hurt us, we don't condone them. Right? Don't just brush it under the carpet. I'm not talking about that. We actually truly walk in the spirit of forgiveness towards him. Not when we're proven to be right. Not when kind of the hurt goes away, but simply as a response to him because Jesus has done that for us. I'm going to ask you to fasten your seatbelt. I've read stories before. I've shown stories before, especially in this era because it's very, very tender. And I love her, and I'll protect her with my dying breath. But would you welcome Tulia to the stage this morning, please? Caitlin's checked it already. Andrea didn't check my clothing this morning, so I'm in trouble. Hey, I asked Tulia to come because I really believe that Jesus spoke to Jen before we ever came to church this morning. I really believe what happened during announcements was actually a prophetic word from the Lord that was just leading us into this morning to take us here. I'm glad to be with her. I'm glad to do this with her. But I really believe that what Jen prophetically spoke to us this morning was directly from the heart of the Lord as we enter into a new season here in September, October, as you start this fresh new year, that he wants you to be done with unforgiveness. Not justify it in a white church type of way. I'll keep a little bit, I'll take it home. Because that's what white people do. They just do. Andrea's brown, so I can say that. So anyway, I'm really white, she's not. She's permatanned. Anyway, but we play white church. I come to church, I'm going to take it home. I think Jesus doesn't want us to take it home this morning. I think he wants to deal with it. And I think he brought this young lady to take us to a real place because this is a real story from a real person that we all know. So sit back, fasten your seatbelt. I'm going to hand over to Tulia, let her share her story. Young lady, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. So Sunday night we were talking about going over the message about love and acceptance, and the question was brought up, how do you forgive somebody and love them that's hurt you so deeply? And I felt the Lord nudge me and be like, you have a story to share, and I was like, yeah, right, let's go. So Sunday night, so we're talking about that. And so when I was 8 years old, I was sexually abused by my cousin on a family trip. And I didn't deal with it until about 3 years ago is when I started, the Lord was like, girl, we got to deal with this. This is causing so much harm to you, not to him, but to you, because he's forgotten about it. He doesn't even remember it. But you do, so we need to deal with this. And so it was walking on this journey, and the first step was to tell somebody that hey, this happened to me, where do we go from here? And I started this really hard, not always pretty, but beautiful journey with the Lord, walking and learning how to forgive my cousin and what that looked like. And a lot of it was just this daily surrender of Lord, help me forgive him because I don't want to, because I was in that spot where I wanted him to pay for it, and I wanted justice, and I wanted all of these things, and I wanted to be so mad at him, and I was. But the Lord was like, Tulia, forgiveness isn't for him, girl, it's for you. Unforgiveness is holding on to a hot stone. The longer you hold on to it, the more it just hurts me. It doesn't hurt them because they're not holding it, I am. So I had to walk in this of letting that stone go and putting it at the Lord's feet and watching him heal me and not holding on to that hurt any longer, because I was just allowing him to continually hurt me because I wasn't able to forgive him. So I walked on this journey, and it was not always pretty, and I was angry, and I was mean. But I learned that it was because I wasn't letting other people love me because I was still too hurt from what he did to me 12 years ago. I wasn't able to receive love from friends and family and even the Lord. I kept the Lord at an arm's distance, and I was like, I'll serve you and I'll love you and I'll do what you want me to do, but don't love me because that's too scary and that's too hard for me. And he was like, no, I want to, and let me. And he used people in my life to love me and to show me that not all men were bad, because I believed that. I kept men at an arm's distance, but through forgiving him and walking in this with the Lord, I can stand here now and I wish the best for my cousin because I love him, but that doesn't mean that I don't, we don't call each other every day and we're not the best of friends, because there still needs to be boundaries there. But I can champion him and I can want the best for him because he's still God's kid too, and God loves him so much. But I don't have to let what happened 12 years ago affect me today, because the Lord's good and he's going to bring goodness through this. And he showed me that he was there in the midst of everything happening, and he knows what happened, and he's allowed it for his good and his glory, but also for my good because he loves me so much. That's the God that we serve, that he redeems ugly things to be beautiful things in the future because he's just that good. And those steps are hard for forgiveness, and sometimes it's a daily thing of Lord, help me forgive him, like I said. But there's so much freedom and so much joy when you walk in that journey and you cut the ties of them holding that power over you to continue to hurt you, because then you really get to walk in freedom and allow other people to love you and to love other people without that hurt kind of casting a shadow over that. But then you can really see people for who God sees them, and that's such a beautiful thing.
So Tulia, what steps, I mean, obviously you're a lot further along than maybe some people that are sitting here, or maybe some people that are watching, because there's probably some people maybe sitting, Tulia, and watching who are spitting, like spitting spears right now, because the anger and the frustration, that part, they're like, how dare you, they're there. Mm-hmm. Maybe it's just happened like the last week or last, 6 months ago, a year ago, but you're a few steps further. What steps, Tulia, would someone who's going, okay, I'll try again. I've tried a few times, I've tried to get beyond it, but I just stay there, right? Because that's just a cancer. So what would you encourage people to take as a first step to truly get to a place of starting to walk in a place of allowing forgiveness to be a part of their particular situation? I know we can't speak to the individual situation, but if someone was just going, hey, Tulia, how did you start? How did you start this journey? What would you say to them?
I think the first thing that was the most helpful for me was sharing it with a close friend, and just confessing it. There's so much power in confession, because the enemy wants to put shame over everything or something that's happened like that, and that's what the enemy did for me for years, and it was ridiculous. But the moment that you speak that, you bring light into it, and you allow the Lord into that. So that would be the first step I would suggest and encourage you to do, is to just share it with a close friend, that's somebody that you trust, and that you know those people that you can tell anything or everything to, and they're going to be there and support and love you. And that would be the first step. And then the second step would be just to pray your heart out. And sometimes, tell God all the things. He can take it. Yell at him, cuss at him, whatever you got to do. Because he can take it, but he loves you. And then ask for forgiveness in that later, too. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yeah. 801-695-7700. rigeiler@me.com. I appreciate what you said, the first step. And I'm not old in the tooth. I'm old, but not old in the tooth, Tulia. But a lot of times, that first step, we actually don't, because you said some powerful things. Someone who'll encourage you in the Lord, someone who'll help you take the journey. A lot of times, we actually go to the wrong people, who don't put water on the fire. They actually put fuel. And they actually make us worse than we were yesterday. They just, yeah, you're absolutely right. Cut his head off. And yeah, God wants to do that. So how do you go about picking the right people? How did you go? Because there's lots of people out there that honestly, I'm really sorry, guys, so forgive me. We're going to go late. The Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. I love all these guys. I really do. But it's crazy on Super Bowl Sunday. Because I go to some of their houses, and they scream at that piece of glass like they know what they're talking about. I was at the last game, and there was all these people telling what the quarterback guy that no one liked, what's his name? The one that won it? Tom Brady. They were screaming at the glass, and I was sitting thinking, you do know he can't hear you. You're right? And I thought, oh, right. You're like a spectator. You kind of think you actually play the game, but you don't. You're sitting in the bleachers in the nosebleed section at best. And oh, by the way, he paid more taxes last week than you'll ever make in your lifetime. But we have this where people kind of speak into it, but they really have no experience to actually speak into it, because they're not quarterbacks, but they sit in their chairs and they recline and they eat cheese stuff and whatever, and they talk like they are. And you have a lot of people that go, yeah, and they, how do you pick a person that will help you work through the pain of unforgiveness to get to forgiveness? How do you do that?
For me, I was very fortunate to have a really close friend that she had walked through something similar, and she had shared with me first that she had dealt with that. And so then I knew that it was a safe place, because she knew exactly where I was at and what I was feeling, and everything like that. And she was able to walk through that with me because she was 3 steps ahead of me. And she was able to like walk with me. As she got further, she was able to like give advice to me like down drain. Does that make sense? So like a waterfall kind of a thing. So like if you have like a pool up here, like she was the pool up here that was like giving water to me down here because I was still behind. So she shared with me first, and she has a deep relationship with the Lord. So she was able to speak life into me rather than just like be like, yeah, just be mad at him and like hold him to this and da-da-da-da, because that's not helpful. That just does the opposite of what we're trying to do. So she had a deep relationship with the Lord, and she was 3 steps ahead. So that's how I knew and was able to walk through that with her.
And I agree with you. God's okay with you swearing. So how vulnerable did you get when you puked it all up?
To the Lord or to my friend?
No, to the Lord.
To the Lord?
I mean, because there's some people sitting here, well, I'm like a really good Christian person, I would never do that. Well, actually, when you have anybody ever had food poisoning? Like, it's okay, be proud. Woo! You crossed over to try real food. Anyway, food poisoning comes out one of either ends. Yeah, whoop, okay. People are like, this is church? Yep, it is.
It's real life.
And here's the thing. When you get food poisoning or unforgiveness, it has to come out. It can't stay in. There's that point when I get food poisoning. I've had it loads of times because I love trying crazy food, weird stuff. There's a cold sweat breaks. And I go, oh, thank you, Jesus. And I'm over the hill. I think there's an over the hill experience that we need to have when it comes to forgiveness. And you have to break through and you have to push through. Tulia's going to stay with me as we close the service here in a second. But she said, and she doesn't know what I wrote, but practice reminding ourselves of how much we've been forgiven. It helps keep everything in a right perspective when you start this journey. 2, start from a place of practicing prayer, even if it feels like you're choking, because you are. Remind ourselves that forgiveness is in no way a condoning of what the person has done, not even close. It's simply a way of helping to stop the emotional bleeding. And you have to stop it. You need to feel that life-changing experience of truly walking in what forgiveness brings and what forgiveness is for you, maybe for the first time. Say yes to Jesus. Jesus, I need you to help me experience forgiveness from you so I can give it to other people. Do you need to extend forgiveness to somebody for your sake, or do you need to have it extended to you for their sake? Then I encourage you to come and experience it in a moment. You want to put the weight down that you've been carrying because it's way too heavy? You have to choose to put it down. There's a song that a lot of us maybe know, maybe don't know. Matthew West wrote it called Forgiveness. But I don't know if you've ever actually sat down and read the story about how the song was written. If you haven't, we're going to close service with it this morning. I'm sorry I went over, but I did not want to rush this at all. I want you to sit back and enjoy this song. It runs for about 8 minutes, so it's quite a long time. But here's what I would encourage you to do. If there's a point in the song that Jesus speaks to you, and you know you need to come and either get to a place where God would help you get to a place where you can give forgiveness, or God would get you to a place where you can actually be open to receive forgiveness from somebody, I'm going to ask you during the song, if God speaks to you, just come and find a spot somewhere else in the room. Step in the aisle, kneel down. Come to the front, kneel down. Why? Because physical response stirs up a spiritual reaction. Physical response so often stirs up a physical reaction or spiritual reaction in us, and so often we don't do that enough as people. And so, Tulia, would you just open this video in prayer before we start? So Tulia's going to pray now, and then would you play it for me, please? Thank you, Tulia.
Lord, we just come before you and just thank you so much for who you are and just that you're such a sweet God, Lord. And we thank you first that you've forgiven us for so much, Lord, that we can't comprehend, and we just ask that you can just give us the strength to be able to forgive those that hurt us, God, because we know how much we hurt you and how much forgiveness we need from you. So Lord, we just ask for just your power and your boldness and your strength to just help those that need to take that first step. God, would you just nudge them and tap them on the shoulder, Lord, and lead them to walking this journey out with you. And we just lift all of these people up and thank you so much for everything that you are and all that you do for us, Lord, because we don't deserve it, but we thank you. And we just say these things in Jesus' precious name. Amen.